Throughout his career, he has worked with some of NASCAR's greats, while the guys that turned wrenches with him were expected to work hard, but had a good time. Today on Men Behind the Wrenches, we take a look at the outrageous David Ifft. Mention the name at the racetrack and it's sure to bring a huge smile. David Ifft's approach to NASCAR racing may be unconventional, but has resulted in success. Hello and welcome to Men Behind the Wrenches. I'm your host, Jeff Hammond. David may be well known in the garage for his comedy routines, but behind the fun exterior was a crew chief that was focused on the task at hand, winning races. David grew up part of a large family near Youngstown, Ohio, where his dad was an early influence.
Well, I used to hand him wrenches when he was working on a car and I was 5 and 6 years old. He would say, give me that 1/2-inch wrench or 9/16 wrench, and I knew what the wrenches were and would hand them to him. And that's, you know, I guess at 5 and 6 years old you knew what wrenches were all about, so you kind of growed up in it. And I was you know, I liked to do stuff different. And when I'd go to the dirt track races with him, I was 16, I wanted a car. So I built my own dirt car and everything, and I couldn't drive it because I couldn't see good enough to drive it, I don't think. And I just, you know, certain things you can do good and certain things you can't do good. And right then I tried it and I said, well, this ain't for me, this driving. So I just worked on them from then.
At age 21, David moved his young family to the South, looking to accomplish his dream of being a mechanic.
I stopped at Banjo Matthews' shop. He was the big car builder then, and he said, I think I know a guy in Spartanburg that's looking for somebody. And I went down there, and Bud Moore hired me in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Those early days at Bud Moore Engineering were a learning experience for David.
Bud taught me how to work efficiently. It was we worked 8 to 6 o'clock. And there was very few days I worked after 6 o'clock. And it just, if you was painting a car or something, you might have stayed for an hour more. But he taught you how to, you know, utilize your time real good. And he, you know, didn't have big sponsors and that, but his cars always run good. And he taught you how to make sure that everything was bolted on right and, you know, prep the cars good and stuff like that.
Once David learned the basics, Bud gave him other opportunities.
We went to Hickory, North Carolina. Somebody couldn't go, and Bud Moore come and asked me if, in fact, I don't think he knew my name for 3 years. He called me boy. Come here, boy. And we went to Hickory, North Carolina. Bobby Isaac was driving the car. It was one of them Grand American races or something. K&K Dodge was there. Junior was there with Kale, and we went there, and the guy that could change the tire wasn't there, and he asked me, he says, can you change that tire, boy? And I says, I can do it. And I changed it, and from then on, he took me on the road with him.
David was now on a fast track of becoming a Winston Cup crew chief. David Ifft learned his trade from one of the masters, Bud Moore. But he had a family to support and wasn't making ends meet.
I started for Bud Moore at $113 a week. I think we made $3 an hour, or $3.25 an hour, and anything over 40 hours was time and a half. And the petties paid that way, and you had the petties, the Wood Brothers, Bud Moore Engineering, and when you were riding in the truck going to California, it was half time. You didn't get the $3 because you wasn't working, you was riding, so you only got $1.50 an hour. But you wanted to do it. That's what you know, it was exciting, and, you know, to see the country and the people that you meet and everything.
In 1974, Bud's driver, Bobby Isaac, abruptly retired, and the team needed a driver. David had been eyeing a brash young talent, Darrell Waltrip. David suggested to Bud he put Darrell in his car.
I was riding home with Bud in the car, and he said, man, we're in a mess now. We got this sponsor, and we ain't got no driver. And I just happened to rattle off. I said, why don't you put that Darrell Waltrip in that car? And Darrell Waltrip was just coming along, and he only run about 8-10 races that year in that terminal transport car. And but when he run, I watched him, and Bud wasn't watching him. He was watching the Woods Brothers and everything. But I'd watch the guys in the back run and the new guys coming up during the race. And And Bud looked over, he chewed that tobacco, you know, and spit that tobacco out, and he says, who's Darrell Waltrip? And I didn't say no more. And then, so Tuesday of the following week, here comes Darrell in the shop.
Darrell finished out the last 6 races for Bud and then moved on to DiGard Racing in 1975. He asked David to join.
Me and Darrell got to be pretty good friends, and he kept on me and on me. He says, why don't you come and work for me, be my crew chief down at DiGard, which they were running out of Florida then. So I left Bud Moore after 4 years, and you know, it was a hard thing for me to do because I could have been there forever with Bud. And I left Bud and went with Darrell, and I was his crew chief, and then Gatorade come along, and me and Darrell hired Robert Yates from Junior, and things just went from there.
David and I just worked really good together. It was at a time when I was just getting started. We were with DiGard, and DiGard was in a situation where they were down here in Florida, and everybody else in North Carolina, and David moved down here. It was hard to find people to work down here because everybody wanted to be in Charlotte. But David came down here and he went to work.
David learned how to be a crew chief along the way, surrounding himself with good people.
When I hired somebody, I knew they were good workers. And, you know, like I could name some people that worked for me, like, you know, Barry Dotson worked for me, Buddy Parrot worked for me, Gary Nelson, you know, they come in young like we were, but the money wasn't the issue then. It was, let's say everybody dug in. We didn't have titles then, and we didn't, you know, the joke back then, if you had a title, that was the next step out the door. So, you know, everybody, we didn't have car chiefs or specialists in things. Everybody done everything. If it took the crew chief out there loading the truck, we drove the truck, you know, and everybody done everything, whatever it took to get to the racetrack.
The DiGard team knew how to win and have fun.
Oh, David was crazy. Not crazy, but just a lot of fun. Man, we could really tell some stories about our days together. And but you got to realize that, again, we had a team that had a sponsor. We had a driver that could win races, and it was just a deal where, you know, we knew we had one of the best race teams, and we only had to beat 5 guys on a given Sunday.
If you look at the guys I worked with, they all got pretty similar personalities, kind of fun-loving. They take their job seriously, but they don't take it too seriously. There was a time to get serious, and then there was always time to play, and I love to play. I mean, to me, one of the best parts about our sport is the time away from the track that you spend with your team, your crew chief, those times that you spend together going to dinner, talking about racing, and then Sunday you go to the track and you put your game face on, you go out and you're competitive and you win.
David Ifft had found success as a Winston Cup crew chief. At DiGard, David Ifft and Darrell Waltrip's outrageous personalities clicked.
Darrell made me, and I helped make Darrell. I took the chance, and as his crew chief, and he could talk like the man on the 6 o'clock news, and that's what the cameras wanted. And so Darrell was always, no matter where he was running, how good we was running, they were always talking to me about how the car's running and how Darrell is, and because we had a story for him.
And David was smart. I mean, we won races, and we had a good time together. He enjoyed, I'm sure he liked working with me because that's where he got all of his underwear and socks. Tell you a quick story. I used to go in the truck after a race. You know, you're hot, you're sweaty, you're dirty, and you take your uniform off, take your underwear off, throw them in the closet, take your socks off, throw them in the closet, slam the door and leave. So, you know, after a period of time, I got to thinking about it. I'd run out of underwear at home. I said, what in the heck's happening to all my underwear? And so I'd go back to the track, and, you know, you get work and you wouldn't think too much about it. So one weekend we were at a track, and it just happened. I had no underwear. I said, David, you got any idea what happened to all my underwear? I said, every time I take it off, I put it in the closet, and I got to realize that when I come back, it's not there. He pulled his pants down. He says, this look like yours? He would take he'd take my underwear, my socks, any shirts, T-shirts, home. Gretchen, his wife, she'd wash them, clean them up, get the skid marks out of them, and that's what he'd use.
The duo's biggest win was Talladega in 1977, when Darrell beat the old guard in the final lap.
We were going down toward the end of the race there with about 4 laps to go or 5 laps to go, and in fact, you know, Buddy Parrot was with me, Gary Nelson was there, and myself, I was the crew chief, and I come on the radio with about 4 laps to go, and I said, Darrell, you don't want to be leading this thing to last lap, and he goes, "David, shut up, I know what I'm doing." And I didn't say no more, you know, and here he come around. Them guys got the Dyson back there, and Darrell just pulled a couple car lengths, and that's what give them the race. And then we went we went and won Richmond, then we won Darlington. That really give us the boost to get going, you know.
NASCAR was changing, and David's services were a hot commodity. He decided to take an offer from M.C. Anderson to head up his program.
When I went to work for him in 1978, I think it was, 79, I was the first crew chief that really made big money. You know, you know, 6 figures.
When David decided to leave, he had to tell Darrell.
Me and Darrell talked it over, and he didn't want me to leave and everything. And it was kind of a deal. We kind of got shafted a little bit with the Gardners on money. He was taking our percentages that we were supposed to be winning. We had a good deal there, and I told Darrell, and even Robert Yates was our motor man, and I told Robert, we're going to get shafted here, you know, and I didn't sign the contract the last year I was there, and Bill Garner kept on me, and you know, racing was different back then. A lot of these guys got a sponsor, and they lived off the sponsorship money and had the nice houses and everything like that, and we run that race team off of what we made. The sponsorship money never went back in there now, and even when Bobby went over there and won the championship with Miller Beer and that, they always struggled, you know, and I just got out before it all blowed up.
Now at the helm of MC Anderson Racing, David found himself teamed with Buddy Baker.
Me and Buddy are good friends. That's probably why we were successful. We were real good friends. I spoke his language, he spoke my language. When he would start getting hyper or I started going too fast, he would say, "Calm down, David, we'll get it, we'll be all right." And then if he would get going too fast, I say, "Just do the best you can, ride it out, we'll be all right." If we had a flat tire or something, got a lap down, or I said, "Just hang in there and just keep race the racetrack, and we'll get it back." And that's how he helped me, I helped him.
David Ifft could make a race car go around the racetrack, and when he and I were together at MC Anderson's, and we had the engine program or durability. We had a good engine. If we had durability built in the car, we would have won a bunch of races.
At the end of the 1978 season, Buddy moved on, and the team found themselves looking for a driver.
And Benny called, and he said, "David, you tell MC I'll drive that car." And I said, "Well, you will?" Because that's when DeWitt, he was driving for LG DeWitt. He wanted out of there or something, and I went in and told MC, I said, "You know, Benny," and he said, "Benny Parsons drive my race car?" And I said, "Yeah, he'll drive it." And he come down and they struck a deal, and probably them 2 years was probably the calmest and the easy. Benny could keep me calmed down. I think he could. But Benny's Benny, and we had a good time them 2 years. That was the best 2 years of probably my life, as Benny took a lot of pressure off me, so it made it comfortable for me.
David and Benny were steady contenders. They finished third in the championship in 1979 with 2 wins.
We complimented each other. You know, Benny would say, "Hey, David, this car's getting a little ratty inside here, ain't it?" But it was constructive criticism. He was right when he told me something. You know, we need to do this, we need to do that, and he was right. And he kept me motivated because he's such a calm person. You got doing what you just needed to do, but then he knew when to push me to do it better and do more of it.
As far as race car is concerned, he was very good. He was very good because, again, he had a very good personality. So he could go around and talk to the other crew chiefs and find out, "What do you got in the right front?" "Yeah, well, me too." I mean, he knew what everybody had in their cars, and he could take all that information with what the driver told him and could make a better decision on what to do to his car. Plus, with his personality, he could always surround himself with pretty good people to work on the race car.
In the team's second season together, they were runner-ups for the title with 3 wins, but it was an emotionally tough season for both David and Benny.
The second year that he drove for us, we were like, I think, about 90 points out of the lead going into Dover with about 5 or 6 races left, and Cale Yarborough was coming the next year, and Benny, we were all hurt. And I think when people know that the change is coming and they didn't want it, it kind of, you know, killed our race team, really. It kind of disappointed everybody, and we were just going through the motions. And then the last race, I said, Benny, let's go out with a bang, and then we won Ontario, the last race that Benny drove for us.
Three-time Winston Cup champion Cale Yarborough joined the M.C. Anderson team in 1981, and the team found more success running a limited schedule.
Well, when Cale come to race, I mean, man, we got Cale Yarborough. That's like getting Michael Jordan on your team, and you know, we got pumped back up, and we had a good race team. We had a good race team with Benny. We just Cale knew we had a good race team, or he would have never left Junior Johnson to come with us. So, and it was because of Benny we built that race team that way. And Cale come, and I think we run 18 races the first year and won 6, and then we run 15 the next year and won 5. So we won a third of the races that we run. We didn't run the whole schedule then. We backed up, and that was what Cale was doing anyway. He was on his way out. He wanted to retire.
When MC couldn't convince Cale to run the full schedule, Anderson decided to pack it in. David was at a crossroads, but his future venture would capitalize on his gregarious personality. After the 25 seasons in the sport, David Ifft moved on to form his own business, consulting on race cars for others and doing some racing. He also purchased Carolina Speedway near Rock Hill, South Carolina, where he promotes weekly races. To this day, the mention of his name brings smiles to all that know him.
David Ifft, I'm going to tell you the honest truth, does not spend a lot of money on frills, to say the least. Still remember his favorite gas cap on his car when I went to work. First time I ever worked with David Ifft. Gas cap on his car was gone. And he had like a sleeve of a shirt or something stuffed in there for a gas cap.
David Ifft is one of the funniest people you can spend time with. He's old school. I recently did a piece on David for Speedway Illustrated, and he and I were kidding about how we just had to get that piece in print right away, because if we didn't get it in print right away, surely he would be gone from the team. And indeed, 2 weeks before the thing hit print, David was gone from the team. He'll come, he'll go, wherever he goes, his magic is that he puts his hand on the car and the car goes faster.
David is one, we need more David Iffs around, particularly today. Everything has become so serious, but you know, unfortunately for David, I think his some of his comedy routines are more well known than perhaps his accomplishments as a crew chief, which is unfair to David. They had time for humor. David Ifft, Buddy Parrot, Bud Moore, Harry Hyde, and maybe that's why so many people nowadays say the sport isn't fun anymore, is because some of the antics that those people did would be frowned upon, particularly by corporate America. And maybe the sport's forgotten how to have fun. And that's sad.
Fat, dumb, and happy. He was a fun-loving, carefree guy. He was not, you know, sullen and down in the mouth. He was always fun to be around. He's a character, and that's probably the best word that you can use, his character. I don't know where he comes up with some of the things that he comes up with.
David, like I said, he was a great mechanic. He was, and won races. He won races. He and Benny, they beat us at Charlotte Motor Speedway. You know, that was a crew chief against a crew chief call, and David Ifft made the right call that day, and I made the call to Darrell and I made the call to stay out on used tires, and we wore our tires out. And David made the call to put tires on, and it was chancy at the time, but he's a smart man in the pits, and like I said, I respect him as a mechanic and as a person.
With all the fun times, David's true contributions with a wrench are overlooked.
You can't be a successful crew chief on a car and not have talent. And part of that talent is the ability to surround yourself with people that complement what you do. I think you look at all those crew chiefs, and if you could line the men up that each one of them had working for them when we were winning races, you would find that they have similar personalities and they approach the sport the same way we did. Work hard, work together, I mean, there was nothing, it was not unusual for me to stay in the shop 18 hours with the crew and get in the truck and drive to the racetrack with them. That was the camaraderie you had to have back in those days to make everything work, because the money wasn't there then. The drivers didn't make the money, there wasn't sponsorship money, the crew guys didn't make a lot of money. Lots and lots of hours. There's more dedication and desire and wanting to be there and wanting to be a part of it than there was anything else. And that's what David had too. He really wanted to be successful.
I never had a real job, so I've been fortunate, and I've done good, made a good living, and see, every day's Saturday to me. People work all week and you know, get off and do what they want to do on Saturdays. I've done what I want to do every day, and you know, as you get older, you see things different, and I've always been, I think it relaxed the race teams. When I joke around and with the guys, and there was a time to be serious, and then there was a time for playing and joking and everything, and I think that kind of relaxed that's why it's successful, because they knew we worked hard, and David would come out and play with the guys, just golf or drinking or whatever, carrying on, and they knew that, but the next day we had to get the job done.
David Ifft continues to work in the sport today, tutoring young drivers and crew chiefs in the craft of making cars go fast. David emphasizes the team aspect of the sport, while not taking everything so seriously that he forgets to laugh. For Men Behind the Wrenches, I'm Jeff Hammond, and thanks for joining us.